So Phocuswright and WiT have been reporting on the shift to digital since we started these businesses a couple of decades ago. And obviously now we're at a pretty significant portion of the market being transacted online. But never, and I think Suhoon would agree with me here, never have we seen such a dramatic shift to digital as we've seen over the past couple of years. So the pandemic really created an opportunity for travelers to shift to digital channels in different ways. So that's what we're going to talk about here today. We're going to start by zeroing in on the Asia Pacific traveler and looking at some personas that were impacted during the pandemic. And then we're going to broaden the lens a little bit and talk about how Google thinks about product development in this new world. And finally, we're going to present some Phocuswright research and peer a little bit into the future and maybe predict what the future traveler is going to be thinking about. So without further ado, let me introduce Hermione Joye, Google's sector lead for travel and vertical search for APAC, to take us through some Asia Pacific trends.
Thanks, Pete. And thank you, Suhoon and team and WiT for having us today. This is certainly a world-class event. I was having flashbacks to just 24 months ago when we were doing this in a fully virtual world, and God, I am relieved that we're back in person, because at that point, I had to make an emergency call to Suhoon and Jerry over there to ask them to redact my presentation, because I realized my husband was walking in the background shirtless, and that was not going to go down so well. So things have improved somewhat since then. But seriously, on a note, what I've seen over the last 2 days is an incredible energy in the room, and the grit and the determination and the intelligence and the disruption and the excitement for travel has been incredible. So I mean, the future is bright, and yes, Japan's open, thank gosh, and here's to China opening very, very soon. So just a quick poll before I get into my presentation. Who here this morning has consumed some type of video content? Can you raise your hand? All right, so I'm going with probably 70+% of the room. Anyone on video content now? Dare I say? Hey. I bet there's a few of you. But that's quite a stark difference if you think about how the world has evolved and changed. And that's why we wanted to embark on, as Google, 2 consumer research studies looking at APAC and the endemic traveler to see what was happening and also the role of video. And today I have a very short amount of time, and I'm going to take you through the highlights. First of all, what we wanted to do is have a look at the different with a lot of chat in the market, there's been many commentary around the revenge traveler. And that has been born and bred out of APAC. And we wanted to really lift the hood on the APAC consumers and travelers over 6 markets to see what was going on and who is this traveler and what do they want. The first thing we wanted to see, is there anything unified in our data and our insights across any themes that we can carry that is true to all markets? And what we found is that the mindset is that travel is now the ultimate luxury. And yes, this is driven in part by the fact that people have been in lockdown, but also really the emergence of the Gen Z traveler, who is this social experience-based audience, and they thrive on travel. What we also found out of the research is that revenge travel is here to stay, at least for the next 12 months, with over 75% of people coming back and saying they plan to travel more in the new future, and that's within the next 12 months. We also found that people are still willing to spend and stay longer, with a range of 30 to 60% depending on markets, and I'll give you some market breakdown and we will be releasing the study, but they'll spend more than they did pre-COVID in the next 12 months on travel. And finally, we really saw something slightly interesting in the sense that this desire to travel for well-being and to be nature-based isn't shifting anytime soon. In fact, actually, people are turning to travel as an opportunity to release stress and to improve their well-being. That, for 48%, nearly 50% of travelers in APAC, is the number one motivator to travel right now. So, who are these travelers and what do they look like? We were able to define them into 4 archetypes. First of all, we have the luxury loyalist. That's around 25% of the market, and I know what people here are very interested in. These are the high-value customers. They desire flexibility. They desire high consumer service, and they're also found on video content. These guys are very loyal if you can get it right. Secondly, we have the urban traditionalist traveler. They are keen, but they are cautious. They prefer city destinations, and they are very active. Then we have the eco-minded families, and that's around nearly just over 15%. These guys are a little bit more budget conscious, and they prefer nature-based destinations, and surprisingly, or not surprisingly, they're very sustainably focused. And finally, we have the remote value seekers. They're budget conscious, but they're a little bit older in demographic. They want to travel domestically, and they're looking for outdoor experiences, and they're traveling for love. But relaxation is top of mind. So in terms of how this unfolds across the APAC region, you can see that the nuances of our beautiful region is still very much there. And this shines through in our data. The Aussies, for example, those luxury loyalists, they're moving to the cities. So are the Indonesians. But the Thais, they want to be in well-being and nature. And you see nuances all throughout the data. The one thing that remains true, though, is that people want to be connected in a digital format throughout their journey, and that people are very keen to travel. And as STP rightly, I can see Cheaphead, but as STP rightly coined, travel is back over the weekend. So let's switch up gears and drill down into the video research that we're launching this month. What we found here is that there is a true desire for people across all ages to be strongly connected. The way they view the content is more personal than ever. Entertainment is no longer linear. It is across multiple platforms, but it also is very nuanced in the fact that we're finding that video is no longer just seen as an entertainment platform, but also a research platform and ideally a purchase platform. Our research came back and told us that over 98% of travelers in APAC use digital in some form of their journey. And actually, in markets like India, 100% came back and said that they use digital, whether it's to plan, book, or research. But across the board, the numbers are incredibly high. But more importantly, what we saw was the role of video within this journey, with 56% of people saying that they used a video touch point when they were researching, booking, and dreaming to make their decision on a travel destination or a brand. And you can see that in markets like Indonesia and also India, that's really high. Nearly 81% of travelers in these markets are using video to connect and research their travel journey. So it's incredibly important as you build out strategies as brands to really think about connecting to the audience of where they are. All right, this is a little bit complex, but we are Google. We love to bring a bit of data into the mix. So we wanted to have a look at the role of video as it pertains to its influence and also map it against the usage. So what we did here was map out how video and what type of role it plays in the consumer journey, looking at from very influential up high and down below looking at usage. And what we saw was that YouTube is really emerging as a platform of consideration and research. Of course, there are other players in the video platform markets, and I see some of my friends over here. Good luck. And it's competitive, it's dynamic, and it's changing. And that's great, it keeps us all nimble. But what you all need to know is video is here to stay and is more impressionable on the audience and travelers than ever. In fact, we see that people are using video not just to inspire, they're using it to search, they're using it for, to excite them, They're using it to evaluate your brand. They're using it to determine the decisions. They're using it as content of trust. They're also using it to inform themselves. So they use it for search. They use it to discover new destinations. And they'll also determine whether they want to go to certain places and share it with their friends. Most importantly, when they experience video, and particularly Gen Z, what we see is they want authenticity and they want content that is dynamic. So how can brands capitalize on the rise of video? First of all, it's really important that you are using video platforms in all your communications, right from your hoteliers through to the end stage of booking. Video has a high influence. And people are turning to YouTube because of its dynamic product suite, from long-term content to shorts. That there is a very diverse optionality for travelers throughout the world. Also, video is incredibly important because it's offering a personalized experience. And what we're seeing now is people today want more visual experiences. They don't want to be reading things, they are time poor, and they turn to video to get their snippets and their information. And finally, we're seeing that people can really be converted via video if the brands are there and telling them a story that's relevant to them. So what this means for everyone today, and I'm wrapping, I'm not sure I'm on time, I'm known for never being on time, so if I do, please give me a clap. Yeah, okay, standard. So what I want to do is, for brands today, first of all, there are 4 main archetypes for APAC. Know them and use your first-part data to talk to them in a personalized manner because that's what they're expecting. Secondly, understand that the APAC traveler is digitally dependent and expecting you to have digital at the heart of everything you do. And thirdly, make sure when you're planning out your strategies for communication, you are using video and engaging with them wherever you are. Thank you very much. I'll hand over to Pete and Mike.
All right, Jerry, can we pull up the research slide? So here's a slide from a project that Phocuswright researched back in 2016, looking at the Southeast Asia market. At this point, we were 37% penetrated from an online shopping and booking perspective. Actually, that's from a general e-commerce perspective. Travel was a little bit higher at 41%. Hermione suggested that 98% now we're looking at digital channels. So while we can't really compare apples to apples because there are 2 different methodologies used, clearly there's been a huge shift to digital. So as you're thinking about product strategy, are you looking to Asia as kind of a model of maybe how some Western consumers will behave, or are you kind of taking it on a market by market approach?
That's a great question, Peter. So I think definitely we're also very impressed by the rate of change here. I think it's incredible to see how quick the digital transformation has taken place in this market. I think Asia is really at the forefront of a lot of the important trends shaping travel, shaping consumer behavior. In addition to just online penetration, right, the usage of video in people's travel research and inspiration, I think is a really, really exciting trend, a really big change in how consumers behave that we're trying to learn about and adapt to. I think in terms of how this influences our product roadmaps, definitely we think about developing products for the world and try to really build things that are going to scale globally. But there's a lot we can learn from markets like Asia about emerging trends that are going to ultimately shape the behavior of new generations of traveler all around the world who I think are learning many of the things and falling in love with many of the products and platforms that are emerging from this dynamic region.
So speaking of learning, as you're thinking about developing products, is it truly about testing and learning, or are you trying to anticipate, where the traveler's going to be?
Yeah, I think those are really 2 sides of the same coin, right? Like ultimately you do need to kind of have some hypothesis of what is going to help a traveler have a better experience, be more informed, kind of complete the task of planning their journey. But everything we do, we ultimately end up testing and validating. So Google is kind of famous for our culture of being data-driven and doing experimentation. And everything we launch goes through a number of rounds of testing to really make sure that we get it right, that the user value is there, that the advertiser value is there. And it's not uncommon for us to change course completely if we find that something's not working.
So it's really about just looking at the local market, and we talked about that on an earlier panel today, is how we've become much more hyper-local as we've gone through the pandemic, and obviously that was forced by a lot of domestic travel.
Yeah.
But I presume that's the same with, as you're thinking about products, you're really looking deep into individual markets.
We are, and I think that's something that's difficult to do at scale. I think folks in the previous session were speaking to it as well, is how do you balance achieving global scale, but also really adapting your product very, very thoughtfully and scalably to all the different markets in the world and all the different kind of contexts that we want to serve.
Okay, so as markets are reopening at kind of different cadences, what strategies are you finding to be most effective for the customers that you're working with?
Yeah, I think overall, like, the pace of recovery has been just amazing as we've come out of this pandemic. I've been really impressed with how resilient travel demand is as soon as people feel safe and ready to travel again. I think we've seen, for example, like, searches for where to stay in Singapore are up 360% year on year. In terms of, I guess, best practices for how marketers and advertisers can really adapt, I think one thing is really to recognize this shift to digital and be ready and be present across all the digital channels that matter. And one of the things I think that really helps is using the automation that's available in digital channels to help make sure our campaigns are kind of optimized and ready to reach users and travelers where demand kind of is coming. It's very hard to forecast recovery, but being ready, being kind of automated is a big piece of that.
Okay, so you're responsible for hotel ads, Google Things to Do, some optimization. So can you talk about maybe a product enhancement that was most effective at Google? Let's use the past 5 years as a horizon.
Yeah, in terms of helping effective at helping people kind of manage this transition and these changes.
Yeah.
I mean, I think one of the things that we're seeing is working really well is what we're calling property promotion ads. So really kind of shifting the hotel ads product from one that's focused on booking links and booking clicks on the place sheet to really helping brands, suppliers really promote themselves further up the funnel. And I think that's something that we're continuing to explore, is how we can really grow reach and increase the value that we offer from these travel experiences and make more of that value available to our partners.
And maybe what was the biggest crash and burn that you've had over the last 5 years?
So I wouldn't call it a crash and burn, but I think it's definitely been something that we tried and we believed it would help consumers, is what we called our Book on Google product. It's something that we had both in the flights and the hotel space, and recently kind of went forward with sunsetting those products, where we found ultimately, while our belief was it would help consumers more easily navigate the online world, transact, and really make their bookings, we found ultimately that, like, the online ecosystem has caught up and experiences have gotten so good that the need for that product really isn't there anymore. And so it's been interesting to also kind of move back to simplify our model a little bit.
Okay, so let's shift a bit to sustainability, which has been a big topic here over the last couple of days. Can you speak to Google's role as a facilitator, so helping travelers maybe discover more sustainable options? And then also, how can Google influence the industry to really become more sustainable?
Yeah, so we're definitely investing a lot in sustainability, and we really think about this as a problem of making sure we have good, high-quality information that is kind of consistently available and helps consumers make great decisions. So both in our flight search experiences and in our hotel search experience, we highlight kind of the ecological, the carbon costs of flight travel, and we've launched features to let people filter and sort by that to really make more ecologically friendly choices. Similarly, on hotels, we have amenity information on kind of the sustainability practices of the hotels, and we let people filter and seek for those. In terms of helping the industry and really helping kind of as collectively kind of make the industry more sustainable, we're working closely and have joined the Travelist Coalition, where our mission is really to help make both travelers and travel industry players more sustainable. And one of the things we're working on and we're sharing is what we call our open travel impact model, where we've really built a model for understanding the carbon impact of flight travel that's behind sort of the flight search product that we have and the carbon cost that we show there. That's being used by other partners like Skyscanner, and we're hoping to have other players in the industry adopt these tools so that we can help more consumers make informed choices. And we can give them kind of consistent, valid, and accurate information wherever they're searching.
One more question, and then I'm going to get to a little game of this or that. So the last question I have is and we've heard this over the years at travel conferences, Google's role in the industry, you've got to find a balance between obviously monetization of your own products, but also balancing that and optimizing user experience. So, you know, where you may be prioritizing a Google product over another product. So can you talk about how you think about that as you're developing products? Like, where do you fit the Google product in the mix versus your partners that are spending money?
Sure, that's a great question. Yeah, I think ultimately everything we do at Google, we do to really serve our users and really do what works best for them. Really, our belief is like if we do the right thing for users and have their trust and have the best experiences, everything else will follow. In travel specifically, our research consistently shows that users coming to Google are looking for more information than just links to websites. That's why we build things like listings, maps, bring photos, bring prices, and booking options into our search product. It's really what we see consistently that consumers are looking for and respond really well to. Within the context of those experiences, right, the vast majority of the traffic is actually free and organic. And we have offerings like our free booking links that really help also our industry partners reach these consumers, drive traffic from these experiences. And ads is something that we really think about as something that exists supplemental to sort of these experiences that help make sure Google is relevant to travelers and helpful to users.
Okay, great. So we're going to go into a short game that I call this or that. So I'm going to give you two different options, and you decide which one is best for you. So
I hope I don't get in trouble.
Net zero by 2050 or no chance?
Small chance. Small chance.
That wasn't an option. Short form video or search?
I think the arrows all point to short form video right now. So I think that's what we see in our data here too.
TikTok or YouTube?
I got to say YouTube, right?
Web 2 or Web 3?
I think Web 3 is very interesting. There's a lot here. Yeah.
AI or metaverse?
No, definitely AI.
Goodbye pandemic or hello new world?
Goodbye pandemic, I think.
Titans or trailblazers, which is the theme of the Phocuswright conference coming up here in a couple of months?
Say trailblazers.
Trailblazers.
Yeah.
Great. Thank you, Michael.
All right. Thank you, Pete.
So we're going to finish off this session really quickly by having Charuta Fadnis from Phocuswright come up on stage and share for a few minutes on what travelers are thinking about as they're moving into the future.
Thank you, Pete, and good morning, everyone. So Pete missed out on one part of the Phocuswright conference that we've all been talking about here over the last day and a half, and that's travelers. So the theme of the conference is travelers, titans, and trailblazers. And we've talked, every session we've talked about this change in consumer behavior that we are seeing. The post-pandemic traveler is different, and they are. But I think what we haven't talked about, and I think in some of the markets where travel has been open, the US, Western Europe, there's little whispers about what's next? Is this revenge travel thing really going to continue? Is there a chance that perhaps some of that enthusiasm we've seen is going to dissipate? And so we decided what we do best, right? We're going to go out there and we're going to ask consumers about this. So, travel intentions for the upcoming year. Now, this is 7,000 travelers that we surveyed globally. So, whether it's the US, Latin America, Europe, India, Australia, New Zealand, we asked them, what do you think? 95% said we're going to take at least one leisure trip over the upcoming 12 months. And as we've seen, domestic intentions are really strong. The good news, I think, on the international front, as we're seeing Asia opening up, and even in the US, where we did the same survey, yet we asked the same question about international trip intentions back in May. And what we saw was about 20% or so saying, yeah, I'll take an international trip. 4 months later, that's up by 50%. So trip intentions are really, really strong, even for the upcoming 12 months. But then every time I turn on CNBC or Bloomberg, there's this thing, inflation, interest rates going up, everyone's feeling the pinch. Not travelers. 37% of travelers said, this is not going to impact us. We're going to spend what we will spend on travel. We're still going to take that trip. 27% actually said, we're going to spend more. And then about 19% said, we're going to take a little bit of a hit. We're feeling this in our wallets, so we'll spend a little bit less. Spend a little bit less, but travel, that's still going to happen. And that consumer confidence we see across various different parameters, whether it's, how far from home will you travel? And we see that the positive sentiment is higher than the negative sentiment. Same thing when it comes to length of trips, domestic trips, international trips, spend, everything. So it's all pretty much good news. And I'm just going to talk about one more thing. And we've touched on this in pretty much every session. The biggest trend in travel right now, which is sustainability. Now, Phocuswright, we've been asking travelers about their attitudes towards sustainability, towards sort of, eco-friendly tourism for a long, long time. And travelers have always said, yes, we want to be eco-friendly in our travel. Ask them a follow-up question. Do you think you'll spend money on it? Will you pay more? Generally, the answer has been no or very little. The good news is that's changing, right? But what are they willing to spend on? And I think this is important for all of us in the room. Very few travelers are saying, we'll spend more on carbon offsets. Very few people say, that's what's important to me. And we've touched upon this kind of story of the long tail in travel, right? The local businesses, the communities. And I think Hari yesterday said something that was really, really interesting that stayed with me. He was talking about his travels with his son, Hari from Expedia. I don't think he's here. But he said, we have to remember that we are in their world. He was talking about his trips to the Masai Mara, to see the silverbacks in Rwanda. Well, you know what? As a tourist, when you visit a community, you're in their world. And what do you think travelers want to do? They want to eat more locally produced or locally sourced ingredients. They want to shop at local businesses. They want to shop for souvenirs that are produced locally. Everything that goes towards supporting the local community. Now, I think that's important because this is the long tail, right? It's not very organized, but I think there are a lot of people in this room who have the opportunity to help to get us there. So that's what I want to leave you with. Thank you very much. It's all good news. We're all traveling.